Hey everybody, welcome back. So this video is about finding flaws in pipes you're about to purchase. You can't try them before you buy them. There's no test driving a pipe, um, but you can identify certain things that I'm going to try to describe to you now. Um, Filming them is very difficult, and I've already fixed most of the flaws in the ones that I have, so I can't show you prime examples. But the first one is going to be poor fitment. This one's pretty obvious. You'll pick up the stummel, which is the wood chunk of the side of this equation, and you will grab the stem. And if the stem is easily rotated, it should be sticky, if not firm, in there. If the stem is easily rotated, there's a chance that that falls apart as you're trying to use it, and that's a no-go. I wouldn't advise anyone buy that. There are ways to fix it. Um, but if you're buying it, you haven't already purchased that, it's not worth signing up for that extra bit of work. Unless, of course, it's something you really want, then you can sign up for that journey on your own. Um, but you want to make sure that the stem is tight to the stummel. You want to make sure that it lines up in a way that's not going to bug you. One thing you typically can do, but you want to ask first, is you want to put that stem in your mouth because you want to know if that's comfortable. If the stem feels too fat in your mouth, if it's there are very skinny ones and there are ones that don't look super fat, and you put them in there and yet they feel 3 times the size they should be. Um, you want to make sure that that's acceptable where you're at, and you want to make sure that you're really interested in that pipe. I would not let anybody put their mouths on pipes. I was going to sell them unless they were, 99% sure they were going to buy that pipe. It can be cleaned, it can be this, it can be that, but it's a lot of work. And I wouldn't ask anyone to do that to satisfy um, my own wants. So that's something you need to double check with, but that can be a problem. Now the next part is drilling issues. Now stem work, what you care about is going to come down to your personal preference, but you definitely want it to be drilled consistently the whole way through, and that can be hard. Certain shapes, that's impossible. It's just not possible. Pawls, things of that nature, where there's multiple steps of drilling to achieve a certain angle for everything to travel, and there's a lot of filing work and whatnot that goes into it. Um, but you'll be able to identify some drilling issues in the bowl really easily. So you'll have pipes where the airway that's been drilled in, the draft hole, will sort of deadhead. So it'll come in and it won't go into the bowl. It'll like expose where the drill was at the bowl and it'll stop, right? Now, that would be fine for airflow, but you need to remember that you're putting little bits of other things in here. And when this becomes compacted, that is a nightmare to fix. Especially, mid smoke, it is very difficult to repair that. And that's just a poor drilling. It happens, it's fine. Like, no one's going to be shocked. It's not newsworthy, but it's definitely not a pipe that's going to lead to the best experience. There are ways to fix it. You can get a Dremel and get in there and smooth where that's deadheaded out so that in the future when you run a pipe cleaner through and there's a whole bunch of debris in where that's deadheaded, you can push that through and back into the bowl as you should and as you would be able to with like a standard straight billiard or things of that nature. Um, the Peterson system pipes are a fantastic example of why this whole rumor about you should be able to pass a pipe cleaner through your pipe directly into the bowl, and that shows a good pipe. That's baloney. Um, they're drilled twice. They have a separate well for moisture to collect in besides where the smoke goes. And so moisture collects down here, but that's two drillings. And if your pipe cleaner through a bent Peterson picks up a bend, it's going to deadhead into that well, and you're not going to be able to evaluate whether or not it would have passed clear. That's not, no, but you can take the stem out. You can run the pipe cleaner through the stem, and then you can run the pipe cleaner through the pipe and evaluate that there are no issues in the drilling all the way through, and you'll feel it catch if there's any problems. The other issue that you have to confront is bowl coating, and that there's no way to find out if it's a bad bowl coating until you smoke it, and it will taste horrific. And sometimes it's not the bowl coating, sometimes there's stain, an excess amount of stain at the bottom of the pipe. I've tried a few Viking tours that were like that. Every single one I've had, the stain in the bottom of the pipe is disgusting. And it seems like they just dropped them all in a bucket of stain and then drained the bucket. And after like a week of soaking in stain or something, that's when they made the pipe. It's horrible. I've even tried over drilling the pipe to get rid of that. Sanding didn't help. Tried drilling away the wood and it was still there. It's not a positive experience. Those are going to be your main issues. Now, identifying materials that you like and don't like um, is another thing to be aware of. I myself prefer acrylic stems, but I don't bite down on the stems so much. So the hardness of acrylic doesn't bother me, nor would it, because I enjoy jawbreakers and things of that nature, well, before it was a diabetic. But the vulcanite stems are typically black, a little softer material. It's vulcanized rubber, so it ought to be it'll have a little bit of give. Um, but it can oxidize. So if you leave that out in the sun, it's something to consider when you're evaluating a pipe. If you don't have a place to put it away from the sun or time to do the maintenance, I would advise that you don't get a pipe with a vulcanite stem. Bakelite will get super brittle in the sun. Please don't do that with Bakelite. Acrylic does not really break down in the sun. It'll get a little faded or whatever. You can buff that right out. But it is very hard. Now, besides that, there's a few other materials that stems can be made out of. You need to evaluate whether or not those materials are things you're comfortable with, and then there's the pipe itself. There's not just briar. There's briar, there's meerschaum, and then there's the other hardwoods. I have bowls that are made from hickory that they do add like a smoky note to some of the things that go in there, the lighter tobaccos. It's pretty nice. I have some maples. I have one that's made out of orange, but a whole bunch of research had to go in. I wouldn't advise that anybody just go get something made of, this one's Osage orange, which has a reactionary component to it. Another alternative material is Morta. Morta wood is a bog oak that's been semi-petrified. It doesn't break down very fast, and that actually tends to soften harsher or richer experiences. So if you find a tobacco that you like, but it's kind of too much, try it in a Morta, and you'll notice that a lot of it got softer and it's more enjoyable. Trying to think, pearwoods is one I talk about frequently. I think they're a fantastic material. They're much lighter than briar. They don't last as long. Alternative materials to briar don't last as long. But the break-in on a pearwood pipe is super simple, super easy. There's no nasty taste. It doesn't have to be bowl coated. It starts off as a relatively sweet, neutral wood. It doesn't taste like sawdust. It doesn't have any kind of weird oils to it. It's a very pleasant experience and something I'd recommend looking into. Um, Trying to think of meerschaum. There are metallic bowls out there that can be hit or miss on a health standpoint because sometimes they are not made of material that you should be exposing to flame and then inhaling. Well, not inhaling, you shouldn't be exposing yourself to whatever comes off of them when they're heated in the first place. But those things, they they provide pure flavor. They don't interfere with anything, but they can be very expensive, very difficult to enjoy. They're very hot. Obviously, it's metal and fire. Not something I'd recommend for your average smoker, but that does not include like Falcon pipes and things of that nature, where the bowl is a material and then the the airway and everything else is metal. Like that's not a problem. That's not exposed to fire. So you need to consider those changes that as well. Um, if you were to ask me for what a perfect beginner pipe would be, as far as choosing a pipe where flaws are either not going to be there or easily addressed, I'd recommend a more premium corncob pipe. The cheap ones do smoke fine, but a premium one will leave you with you get an acrylic stem and you'll get a little bit better, like denser cob material, so it'll last a little longer. That or a system style pipe like a Falcon, something like that, where you can get bowls to change your experience without having to get a whole nother pipe and save you some of that cost. But yeah, that'll cover some of the identifying issues with pipes. And so far, this is the last one I have for this series. Don't have a whole lot more ideas. If you guys have any questions or another video you would like me to try and make, um, leave it on here. Understand that I am not the end all be all of advice on that kind of thing. Um, but I do have some that I can give, and I'll give you what I know. I hope you have a great day.